Hi, Greg Whitmore from Tyee Mountain Wellness. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate you tuning in, and I appreciate you if this is the first time you've been to my channel. I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe. I'm kind of excited today because this is the first video where I'm actually doing what I want to do and why I made a YouTube channel and a website, and that's to share health information, start some interaction with you, and learn some things from you. And so I hope that there's some value in this, no matter whether you're a health educator and want to put some of this into your health lessons, your health class. A lot of what I share today are parts of lessons that I go over in my 9th grade health class. But also, if you're not a health educator, if you're just interested in improving your health and wellness, I think you'll get something out of it today. So anyway, with that, let's get on with it. I'm going to talk about, the title today is 5 Reasons We Get Sick. Okay, and really I'm talking about why we get ill, why we get infectious diseases and that sort of thing. So I'm talking about the ones that we can control. So let's talk about all causes of sickness, okay? Because I know there's a lot of disease and a lot of sickness that we can't really control. In my classes, we break it down into 3 types of causes, all right? There's the hereditary causes. Congenital would also fall into that as well. So, we know we can't always determine the genes we inherit, and we know diseases like type 1 diabetes, all right, types of cancer, congenital defects that we may have, we really have no control, and that's what we talk about with the kids, no control over that. However, it's important that we know family history and those sorts of things, because if we know there's a history of cancer in our family or diabetes, or what, we can certainly go get health screenings. And so even though we can't control it, we can be aware of it and try for early detection and those sorts of things. There's our environmental causes, okay? Parts of our environment that cause us to get sick. And as I tell the kids in my classes, we have some control over that. Now, as 9th graders, they don't have much control, right? They live in the town or the state that their parents live in, their household, that environment is kind of determined by their parents. They're in the classroom environment. They don't really, they can't determine whether they live in Los Angeles, where there might be a little bit more air pollution, or a small rural town in central Washington. So environmental causes, we have some control, probably more control as we get older. But what we're really going to talk about and focus on, what I focus on in health class, are the behavioral causes. All right, those are the causes that relate directly to our behavior and our decisions. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I put them into Whitmore's Big 5. All right, and my kids, I present it this way, and you can come back to my kids 2, 3 years, maybe even longer later, and ask them, what are Whitmore's Big 5? And they'll get most of them. I hammered into them because these are 5 things that they control that relates directly to their health. And to tell you the truth, it used to be, just as recently as last year, Whitmore's Big 4. But I've added a 5th one that you'll see in a minute. So we're going to go over Whitmore's Big 5, and of course at the end I'm going to ask for your comments below and see if this matches to your way of thinking, because again, I don't think you'll find research that says these are the 5 causes for disease that we can control, but over my 28 years, it's kind of what I've seen causes kids to get sick. My kids come in at the beginning of the year in September, usually pretty healthy, and it never fails about October, November. You start hearing the coughing and the hacking and runny noses, and they're getting sick. And over those 28 years, I've kind of come to realize that a lot of these reasons are why they're getting sick. So first one I'm going to talk about is poor nutrition. All right, so I put it number 1 because to me, that's the most important. I'll go. I think that's the most determining factor. I've changed that in the last couple of years. It wasn't always my number one, but it really has as I've studied research and just kind of understand what our eating habits can do to us as far as disease and how the effect it has on our hormones and the hormone control over disease. I had to put nutrition up at number one. Stress. Okay, certainly stress is a big part of why we get sick. I'm going to go over each one of these individually. But lack of exercise, okay, that's no secret. We've been talking about that for years. Lack of sleep, okay, and that used to be Whitmore's big four. But I couldn't not add a fifth one that is something that we can control that leads to disease. And that's poor decisions and risky behavior that kids take and we take. And I keep saying this is how kids get sick, but really it's the same for us as adults. Really, it comes down to these 5 things of why we get sick. And I guess if you could narrow it down to one thing, really the reason we get sick is because our immune system is weakened and our body's defenses can't fight off the pathogens that invade our body. But these 5 things are things we control that weaken our immune system. And so if we can take control of these and do the right things, then we can control when or how we get sick. So let's start with nutrition. And I'm going to tell you now that I'm going to put a series of YouTube videos together on each one of these topics. And nutrition will be the one that I talk about. Okay? I'm going to talk about some things that I've learned, things that I've been teaching wrong over the course of my 28-year career, things that have personally affected me, how I've just recently lost about 30 pounds, how I've, through nutrition, controlled an autoimmune disease that I've been suffering for a while. So I'm going to talk a lot about nutrition. It's become my latest passion, and through that passion and studying the research, it's moved up to my number one reason why we get sick. I really believe we eat ourselves sick, right? The things we put in our body cause us to get sick. And it's not just the macronutrients, which I'll talk about in a YouTube video down the line, but it's the hormones that our macronutrients stimulate. And so we're going to talk about that. You're going to hear me talk about sugar and insulin, right? So I think those are largely sugar that we take in, and the insulin spike that sugar creates is a huge cause of a lot of our disease. The eating patterns. Okay, you're going to hear some terms like intermittent fasting and some things that are a little bit out of the box that really aren't new, but they're rediscovered. And again, this is some of the areas that I've been teaching wrong. So if we can eat ourselves sick, I believe we can eat ourselves healthy. Maybe it doesn't cure everything, but certainly I'm a big believer in what nutrition can do for our bodies and our healing. Let's go on to stress. Okay, we all have stress. I don't care. My 9th graders have stress. They have a lot of stress. We as adults, until the day we die, have stress. Stress is a given. Okay, of course, we've heard the only givens in life, the only things that are for sure are death and taxes, but I would add another one, and that's stress. All right, so we know that we're going to have stress. So, but it's necessary. There's good stress that we need, right? And then there's bad stress that we need to control. And the fight or flight response that we used to need for our survival, and we don't need it as much anymore, but it's still, through evolution, it's still going on in our body whenever there's a stressor. And again, the release of a hormone, and that is just trickling through our body all the time. And so that causes some disease. And of course, the key is knowing that we have stress is coping with stress. And that's where we break down a lot. I'll even show you a lesson that I have with my kids that demonstrates the need to cope with stress and what happens when we have so many stressors, so many things on our plate, and we can't control it, we can't manage it. It causes to get psychosomatic illnesses. So stress is a big one. To be quite honest, stress used to be my number one. Lack of exercise. I'm not going to dwell on this too much. We've, as a society, are getting more and more sedentary, becoming couch potatoes. I often talk about the Little House on the Prairie days. I think you know what I'm referring to. In those days, you know, the father went out to the fields and walked behind a horse and plow to cultivate the fields. The children went off to school, usually walking a couple miles to school. And of course the mother was tending to the garden, food, laundry down at the creek, and everything else. So they weren't sedentary. They worked from daylight to dark, had dinner, went to bed, did it all again the next day. That's not where we're at anymore. Of course, the invention of labor-saving devices, again, I talk about the horse and plow, okay? And now we have huge tractors pulling, 25, 30 foot discs. So a lot of other things. Instead of getting up to change the channel, we now have remote controls, so we never have to move. So that's all created a sedentary lifestyle. Of course, talk about the video game generation, where you used to walk down in your neighborhood and you'd see kids out playing after school even. Now they're hustling home to get to go play a video game. And of course, cell phones. Plays right into that sedentary lifestyle. We're going to talk a lot about cell phones throughout my videos, probably dedicate a video or two to that, because I'm going to be really interested in what your thinking is on cell phones and how we control this problem. The next item on Whitmore's Big Five is lack of sleep. Okay, this is a problem from the time we're in grade school probably to the time again that we're reaching old age, this trouble sleeping. And we know that's our body's time to heal itself. That's when human growth hormone is produced. That's when the immune system does its greatest work in trying to heal the body and heal itself. So if we're not sleeping, we're not getting as much healing or as much development of our body. So in my classes, we talk a lot about lack of sleep. Our sleep-wake cycle, okay? We have that cycle, that circadian rhythm that I'll talk about in future videos. And if we're not getting normal sleep patterns, we're interfering with that sleep-wake cycle. And that interferes with our natural release of hormones. And again, contributes to disease. Screens in the room, okay? You know, we ask yourself, do you have a TV in your room? Do you watch movies? Do you get on your iPad and check Pinterest out? Are your kids checking out their cell phone and texting and Snapchatting until all hours of the night? I ask my 9th graders often, how many of you have your phone right next to your bed? And virtually all of them do. So you know that even if they are drifting off into sleep, that thing is buzzing and they have to check it. And so they're never getting into a deep sleep. They're never reaching that deep sleep. When we talk about those 4 areas, as we talk about, they interrelate to each other. Okay, they are not independent of each other. One affects the other, and when one is lacking, it affects the other. If we can improve one, it improves the other. So that's the key, and that's why it used to be Whitmore's Big Four, because those 4 really do relate to each other. And again, we'll dedicate a YouTube video or 2 to each of those areas and talk about how they affect the other. So the 5th one again is risky behavior. All right, obviously when we engage in certain types of risky behavior, that puts us at a greater risk of getting sick, weakening our immune system, getting hurt. You talk about freshmen, maybe even adults, some of that risky behavior because of thrill seeking, that adrenaline rush, okay, that high, that need to feel good, that pleasure, okay, and that's a big reason we take risks. And it comes down to then poor decision making. We do a whole unit on decision making, and in fact I tell my kids if I could rename health education, I would call it Decision Making 101, because virtually everything comes down to the decisions we make. So I try to teach them the process they go through. And through that decision-making process, one thing we realize, and again, this will be a future YouTube video, but probably where the breakdown is, kids especially aren't thinking about the consequences. Or at least they're not thinking about the long-term consequences. They're thinking about how they feel today. How is that going to make them feel today? Is that rush, I need that rush now. They don't really think about how it's going to affect their family, how it's going to affect their future. They don't think about the consequences. So we talk a lot about consequences. So that's Whitmore's Big Five. Again, it kind of comes down to, in my estimation, these are the things that cause people to get sick. And I'd be really interested in what your thoughts are on the Big Five. And again, poor nutrition is the top of my list. But as always, I have a question of the day, and I hope you'll comment in the section below. In fact, I have two questions today. What items are missing from my Big Five list? Okay, I'd like you to comment on if you see any glaring things that I missed that I should add to Whitmore's Big Five, make it Whitmore's Big Six. I'd be glad to look at those. And then, should nutrition be at the top? Okay, again, I'm interested in your opinion on that. So please comment in the section below. If there's better answers out there, or you have your own Big Five, Big Six list, I'd love to hear it. So again, thank you. Thank you for joining us on this video today. Thank you for being a part of the community. I hope you'll subscribe to my channel. There's going to be a lot of videos out all pertaining to health. If you're a health educator, I'm hoping this will help you put lessons together. Certainly if you get value, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and hit that bell for notifications and you'll know when I put out a new video. My goal is to try to put out at least one video a week, and I will start focusing on Whitmore's Big Five. Those will be the basis for my lessons and my videos. You can check out my blog at TyeeMountainWellness.com and make some comments there. You can also subscribe to my page there. I appreciate you being here, and we'll see you on the next video.